you, Dustin. Hey, I'm Steve Barsh, managing partner of Dreamit Ventures, streaming from Philadelphia today in a very strange time. I'd like to welcome Geoff Moore. Geoff, thanks for joining us today. We're really excited to have you on Dreamit Live. Let me just give a quick punch. You know, every day at Dreamit, we work and invest in great health tech, secure tech, and urban tech startups. We love to bring great ideas and techniques to our venture portfolio of companies. And we want to, at this time, really help startups around the world survive and thrive in these more challenging times. So today we're going to have Geoffrey Moore on. I'm a huge fan of your work and everything that you've done. At the end of it, we'll have a Q&A with Geoff. If people have questions, put them in the comments. As you join the stream, if you let us know where you're streaming in from around the world, what city you're from, that would be great. And if you're a startup and investor or investor and want to know more about Dreamit, reach out. Geoff, welcome to Dreamit Live. Thanks for coming in today.
Well, it's quite the adventure in our current world, but I'm glad to be here digitally. You're in Philadelphia, and I'm in Los Altos Hills, California.
I was going to say, where? So you're just outside Silicon Valley, I guess, near Stanford, you said, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, everybody I think in the world knows you. You're just so awesome and so great. You know, your life's work has focused on market dynamics and disruptive innovation. You've had so many great books. Crossing the Chasm, I think over 1 million copies sold across multiple versions. It's amazing. How many, has it been translated into lots of languages as well?
Yeah, I don't know exactly how many, but more than a dozen, I believe. Wow. I think well over a dozen, actually.
Earlier in my career, I remember reading it. Somebody had suggested I read it. And I still remember to this day, one of the definitions, right? It was about market segmentation. What's the definition of market? Now, I think I read the first version of it, right? And in the first version, I don't know in the later ones, I didn't reread it, but it was like, look, if you're HP and you sell an oscilloscope, if you sell it to a mechanic, that's one market. If you sell it to a cardiologist for EKGs, that's a different market than the mechanic that does timing. They don't talk to each other. They don't cross-reference. Those are two independent market segments. I mean, I still remember it that clearly. It's just such an awesome, awesome book. And if people haven't read it, it's as perfect today as it was when you first wrote it. So
thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. And latest book is Zone to Win, right? Which came out last year?
No, it came out in 2016, I think. So it's been out for a while. It's the same. It's about the same journey that you make in Crossing the Chasm, but instead of being a venture-backed startup, now you are an established public enterprise, and you're trying to fund this thing out of your own operating income and dealing with the public markets. It's the same journey, but it's a very different problem.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. So amazing background. We're going to jump in a minute to today, really about provocative selling. But can you just let people know, and I'm kind of curious myself, where do you focus your time and energy these days? What keeps you most busy? What's your favorite things to be working on?
Yeah, it's great. So my business card says author, speaker, advisor, and so I write a LinkedIn blog, and I have the books, of course. The speaking, not this year. I mean, it's been quite a part of my world prior to the last 2 months, but not for the foreseeable future. Right. So more time on advising, and I split that between my role as a venture partner at Wildcat Technology Partners, which is a venture-backed organization, early stage investor, and with larger companies, Salesforce, Microsoft, Intel, companies like that. And the larger company stuff is around Zone to Win, and the startup stuff's around Crossing the Chasm.
Got it. Very cool. So if you're just joining us, our guest today on Dreamit Live is Geoffrey Moore. We're going to be talking about provocative selling. It's something that every company and startup should be thinking about today. Before we get into that, I just want to ask one audience question. If you can put this in the comments, if you're streaming with us from LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, if you can put down with one first question, what sales methodology are you using today? So if you're in the audience, are you using challenger sales, problem solution selling, consultative selling? It'd be really helpful for us to know. Put it in the comments. Later, we're going to bring those comments, compile them, and bring them back into the discussion. So great if people could hit that now. So let's jump in to the meat of this, Geoffrey. So back in 2009 or so, you co-authored the Harvard Business Review article, right? In a downturn, provoke your customers. So, in that article, you wanted to provoke difficult sales. So before we dig into it, just at a high level summary, 2 or 3 sentences, what's this all about?
which I think are going to apply to the current downturn, and which we think will be extended for quite a while. And that is that all your conventional lead generation, pipe gen, sales motions, qualifying for budget, all that stuff gets significantly deferred as people are trying to figure out what they're going to do with their own budgets in their own world. And so to get through and actually have an impact in that time, you have to build a different relationship with the customer. Mm-hmm. And basically the provocation-based selling was saying, look, there's a way to break through the noise, but you have to be addressing problems that are immediate to the customer, and you have to bring a fresh point of view to them and a fresh relationship to it. All of which is not shocking, but it's new for your systems and it's new for your people.
Got it. So what was there any event or something? Sometimes people have a moment, whatever it may be. Maybe you're out for a jog. What prompted you to write it at that time? Like, where did you even come up with the idea?
Yeah, so if you look at provocation-based selling, isn't all that different from crossing the chasm selling. It's just that you're doing it at a time when you'd say, well, I've already crossed the chasm. I mean, my category is not in the technology adoption. It's not early in the technology adoption. But the problem you're having is, in both cases, the customer is giving you the doubt of the benefit instead of the benefit of the doubt. And so you really have to re-earn the right to have a relationship and a conversation with a customer. Mm-hmm. And so we were looking for something to break through this sort of semi-permeable membrane that the customer is using to separate themselves from any sales call, because they're just saying, look, this is not the time, and you need to find a way to break through that.
Got it. Okay, interesting. Do you think, look back when you wrote that, and we're going to get into all the nitty-gritty of how does it actually work. Do you think the COVID-19 pandemic is similar to 2008 or 2009? Worse, better? I know it's early days, but
yeah, I think I think the biggest difference is that COVID-19 pandemic is going to drive digital. We've been talking about digital transformation for the better part of this decade,
right?
And I think it's going to drive it. And so in addition to the challenges of a downturn, which I think are similar, mm-hmm. we also have this challenge of going from physical to virtual,
right.
and doing digital interactions, which is a second motion. I think it's going to make it more challenging. At the same time, the quality of the digitals is dramatically different, as we're currently experiencing here.
Right.
And I think people are more expecting to have a digital engagement.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see. The good news about digital is you don't have to get on a plane. And I mean, you can calendar a digital, call pretty darn quickly.
Right.
The challenge is going to be getting the invitation and getting it accepted.
Yeah. And do you think work from home is going to be a trend now? I'm just kidding. It's like the entire world.
Yeah. Well, for the next month, it's definitely going to be, in my view, at least out here. We've said April 7th is a goal, but I don't think April 7th is going to be real. Okay. But I do think probably by the end of April might be real.
Got it.
And so, but that's a long time to speak to your spouse and stay on speaking terms.
Exactly. A friend of mine told me the other day, it's like, well, you need to do social distancing. I've been married for more than 10 years. It's built in, right? That's automatic. Okay. So as we talk about, we're going to dig into the details of provoking customers and provoking the sale, right? Who's the audience for this? Who should be listening and paying the most attention? Is it large companies, startups? Who's this for?
I think it's people who are, look, I think it's probably unlikely to land new logos during this time. So I think, first of all, it's probably companies that have enough of a customer base that you can think about going back to your existing customer bases. Because I think to start a brand new relationship now is pretty challenging.
Right.
Not impossible, but challenging. Right. I think whether you're a startup or a big company, I don't think that matters, because in both cases, you still have to earn the right to reignite the conversation.
Right. Interesting. Interesting you mention that. And at Dreamit and what we do, we work with so many entrepreneurs from around the world, help them raise funds. A lot of times, just to get your reaction to this, we talk to startups that when you're raising capital, remember, you're selling. You're not selling your product, you're selling equity in your company, and treat it like a sales process. Think about it that way. And how are you trial closing and closing the sale and that type of thing? And I just wonder, like you said, maybe you're not going to get new logos. Like we see a lot of our startups that are going back to existing investors. Let's do a bridge round. Let's top off. Yeah. I'm not necessarily, some will. I know a number of Dreamit companies are bringing in new investors even today, but a lot of them are like, let me go sell, so to say, to my existing investors. The same type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just very tough. I mean, if you're not committed to the company already, and you're looking at the volatility in the market, it's just like, I don't even know what market price is, right? I mean,
Right.
Normally venture price is built off of some discount or the market price, right?
Right.
But if the public markets are going to be so volatile, then it's very, very hard. But if you're already committed to the company, then you say, well, look, we kept reserves because, among other reasons, in case of a downturn.
Right.
So most venture companies that are responsible are doing that. But what they're going to say is, guys, in this new world, we need to see you cut your burn rate. We need to see every dollar is a really precious dollar. You can't just go on with business as usual. And that, I think, that comes as a shock to some entrepreneurs. If they don't make the adjustment, frankly, they lose the company, because you have to make that adjustment to go forward.
Well, I'm a big fan of the acronym NITMOY. Necessity is the mother of invention. Right? So you don't have a choice, you get creative. So anyway, just a quick note. I'm going to ask my next question that I'd love to ask you about is other selling techniques, and where do they fall short as we get in? So problem solution selling, challenger sales, where do they fall short? Before you answer that, let me just give you some data from the audience question we asked earlier, what sales methodology to use. For the people that replied, it looked like about 50%, about half said they were doing consultative selling, 25% empathy, and 25% challenger sales. So 50% consultative, 20% empathy, and 25% challenger sales. Where do they fall short as we get into provocative selling? Where do you find they fall short in times like this?
Well, so first of all, I think all of those things are part of the notion of, look, we're no longer pushing products. This is the age of the customer. We need to connect to the customer. So everybody's kind of getting that. I think the challenger sales is very close to provocation-based selling. Challenger sales methodology came out just after the article on provocation-based selling. And so I think that they're very similar in spirit, because again, the idea is to bring a provocative, a challenging point of view, a provocative point of view to the customer. The challenge with consultative and empathy selling, without a sharper point on it, is, yes, it will be received by people that you have a relationship with, but it doesn't drive a sense of urgency.
Right.
And in a downturn, it's really important that you create a sense of urgency. And what you're trying to do is actually create budget, or redirect budget. The budget is there, but first of all, the budget is being husbanded, carefully guarded.
Right.
And second of all, it's currently being allocated just to existing things. And what you really want to do in a provocation-based sale is say, guys, there's another way to think about the challenges you're facing, particularly now in a downturn, but it requires moving your investment from here to there. And we're there, and this is our thinking. Well, that requires interacting with the budget owner, the executive that owns the process, and getting them, bought in. And then once they're bought in, then you have to figure out if you can actually go forward. But getting that executive to say, I am willing to reconsider repurposing my budget, that's a new thing.
So when you're repurposing the budget in a downturn, all of this, do you feel that it applies to products? If you're selling products, I'm selling services. Does it apply to both, or where doesn't this approach apply?
I think it applies to both. I think in a downturn, people are easier to buy services than products because they're kind of immediate. When you buy a product, to some degree, you take responsibility for getting the value out. When you buy a service, it's like, no, I don't. No, you're giving me the value, and if you don't bring it, I'm not going to pay for it, right? So I think even if you're selling a product, I would sell a services-led offer where it feels like I'm getting a service, even if part of that service is installing and running your product.
Got it. Okay, cool. Next audience question real quick. I know we're going to go step by step through provocative selling. So my next question for the audience, appreciate the answers to the first one. And if you're just joining us, by the way, Geoffrey Moore streaming in from Silicon Valley, Steve Barsh from Dreamit. I'm in Philly today, and we're talking about provocation selling. And if you're joining us, please let us know what city you're streaming from. Next audience question, if you could, how has your team adjusted your sales strategy today? Again, if you get a chance, put it in the comment section. If you're on YouTube with us or LinkedIn or wherever you are, put in the comments, how has your team adjusted to the current environment and your sales strategy? And we're going to weave that in just a couple minutes as we talk with Jeff. So Jeff, let's break it down step by step. So budgets are rapidly evolving. We're just going to say eroding. I don't know, evolving, I don't think is correct. They're going way, way down. So how do you learn to be provocative? Give us the steps and we'll break it down together.
Sure. Okay. Well, I think first of all, you've got to build a new relationship with the customer. That consultative empathy style of selling is absolutely prevalent at the beginning, but you need to create an occasion for them to rethink the relationship. So that's the provocation, and the provocation says you need to put yourself in the shoes of basically the CEO or the board of directors or the executive team of your target company, and ask yourself, what are they going through in this downturn that is new, and how can I help them intervene? For example, what we were doing back in 2009 was something we called the leaky pipe provocation. So the leaky pipe provocation was, you guys are trying to hunker down and save all this money, but you've got a bunch of systems that are leaking, value all the way through, and as a result, if you don't fix the leaks in your pipe, you're going to be losing a bunch of money when you should be making money. And so that worked rather well with people who had kind of supply chain issues at that time. I think today's a different provocation type of provocation would be needed. But you've got to tell a story that resonates with the economic buyer, who's the executive responsible for the financial success of the enterprise.
Right.
And say, guys, we've been looking at your sector, and by the way, this is typically targeted at a particular market segment, the way you were describing market segments.
All right.
We're looking at your segment.
The way you describe market segment.
Pardon?
I said the way you describe market segment.
Yeah, fair enough. But the idea is, healthcare would be different than cell phones.
Sure.
And so in your industry, we see some challenges that are not you're trying to address. You're kind of band-aiding the problem. It, to an outsider, doesn't seem like it's working. It's not just your company. It seems to be like everybody. We think we have a different way to, tackle this problem that will be dramatically better. Right. First of all, is this a priority for you to address? So that's the provocation's got to be a priority. And then second of all, okay, if it is a priority to address, let's spend time. Let me describe to you what I think we can do. And if that sounds interesting, then the next step is usually put together a diagnostic team to say, okay, for some of our best and brightest and some of your best and brightest, let's figure out if this really does make sense. And if it does make sense, then let's put together an intervention and we'll sell our product and services into your company and fix the problem.
So just wanted to slightly restate that. Like what you just said, that classic problem solution selling is like, you have this problem, here's our solution. You're kind of like invoking and digging out these problems that, again, that's the provocation, right? I didn't even realize I had the problem because I remember the first time I read this article years and years ago, and it so glaringly came top of mind over the last couple of weeks. And again, thank you for agreeing to be on the show. It was that idea, like you need to plant something deeply into someone's mind where they wake up at 4:30 in the morning and they can't get the problem provoked in their mind out of their head.
It's fair. And if I had to pick the version of the leaky pipe now, so I think it's around digital transformation. And I think what people are waking up and realizing is, well, I knew I was going to have to go digital sometime. I was going to take my time. Now we're working from home. I'm 100% digital. I've been thrown into the deep end of the swimming pool.
Right.
And my processes aren't set up for this. My people aren't trained for this. We don't know how to manage this way. And so if I were provoking you, I'd say I would call that to your attention.
Right.
But then I would bring to you an intervention, which is, okay, and here's where we think we can change that dramatically in the very short term.
Okay. So if I'm working with my sales team, if I'm a startup or a bigger company, right? So are there some classic, and maybe you used them before, but maybe we could bullet them out, right? Some questions that should be asked to help identify critical issues faced by customers. Like, is there a little methodology step by step?
Yeah, but I think it's before you ask questions, because I would say this: if you start with questions, now we're back to problem solution solving.
I'm an intern. I'm saying my team. Like, what are the questions we should be asking ourselves to figure out?
Okay, credit. Okay, yes. Okay. So then I think the first question is actually a marketing question, which is, there are many segments that we potentially can serve or maybe already are serving, but we're looking for a segment that is in particularly urgent potential crisis mode, because we need the customer to come toward us. And so we can't afford them to kind of just keep sitting back and waiting for us to make the next move. So where do we think is a market that really could use our help pretty dramatically right now? Right. And then double click on that market and say, okay, now we can't just sort of paw at the problem. What do we actually think is going on there? What do we have a point of view about this about this challenge that maybe the average person wouldn't, and maybe an inside person inside the company wouldn't, because it's so counter to the standard operating procedure of the company. So even if they had the idea, they wouldn't want to surface it because it would be kind of controversial and potentially politically dangerous. So so you want to do that, and then you want to test drive that with some people that you're friendlies. People say, we're thinking about going pretty hard on this problem. Do you think that's a good idea? What do you think?
You're asking it internally or externally when you ask that?
I think initially, I think after you do it internally, I think you got to get somebody outside your own company,
right?
But probably not your target customer. So somebody that can give you a perspective.
Got it. Just
so then you go ahead.
No, after you.
Okay, so then I think you package the provocation in a provocative communication. And that communication can be something like, for example, you want to get a meeting with an executive. Well, you often need to get a referral to get that meeting. So the friendly person might be a person who has a relationship with a target executive and a relationship with you, or maybe your CEO, maybe not you personally, but somebody in the company. And then you send an email to them saying, look, we're thinking of sending this paragraph and presenting this idea to this target executive. First of all, do you think it's a good idea? Right. If you do, can you forward this to our target executive? Because your email gets through their filter, but mine doesn't. Right. And then we can set up the meeting, and then that creates the right environment for the meeting. And then the other thing about it is, when you have that meeting, you bring your big gun to that meeting. That's the most senior person. It's weird because in normal sales you save your big gun for the end. Close. Right. But in provocation-based selling, you actually fire your big gun at the beginning to get the movie.
Interesting. So a couple of quick things that you brought up that hadn't dawned on me before, but I'm just even thinking, even your latest book and some of your thinking, one of the things you said is you're bringing up these ideas, these critical issues, and you're brainstorming internally. And I think one of the things you said, watch out for the political, that was more internal to your own company. I could see if you're a little bit bigger company or a little further along, you could almost get into an innovator's dilemma when you think about the critical issues. Oh, we can't solve that critical. That's not what we do. It's like, hey, the gloves are off, right? The economy's in the ship, right? We got to.
Well, this is really important. I mean, and I'm spending time. This is an important issue. Yeah. So if you're a big company right now and you don't have venture capital, so basically your core economic engine, even though it's sputtering, that is your source of fuel, right?
Yeah.
But I think what you have to say is, we're playing defense in our core business. We're triaging it, we're protecting it, we're doing everything we can to hold on to it. We're trying to minimize attrition, minimize churn, maximize retention, all that kind of good stuff. And that's fine. But that's not going to create any new energy. That's you're playing defense. So what I would do is I would take a separate team and say, guys, and I would only target the market segment that we think is most productive to target. But there I would free those guys up to say, I want you to take risk in these accounts to see if we can't take it to this new level. And it's a risk, because when you come into that new account, if you have an established relationship there, the established relationship might be saying, well, wait a minute, what about me? I mean, you're going over my head, or you're going around me, or it's a different problem. And so you have to take those issues seriously.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Okay. So let's keep going. I appreciated hearing that. So we talked about identifying the critical issues, and you get into this bit already, but maybe we go a little deeper. How do you formulate that unique point of view, your provocation around these high impact issues? Just one more time. Is it a brand?
I think part of what makes it unique is you actually look at it through the lens of your product. So you say, what we understand our product much better than anybody else. If we look at this problem through our lens, does it look any different? And I think the answer, if you're going to be for the target, it's got to be yes, it does. It looks very different.
Right.
And then you say, okay, now how can I communicate that different point of view to the customer in a way that allows them to sort of provisionally try it on for size, right? Kind of look at it through our lens, and then see if they want to proceed. Because you do need to get a diagnostic effort going at some point for people to go, well, if I'm going to make this big of a change, I'm not just going to do it based on one meeting. So how do I investigate it? How do I build a proposal? How do I pull it together? But you would like to do that with a joint help of insiders from the target customer, as well as your own best and brightest.
Okay, interesting. So You mentioned this a little bit in the beginning, but how do I identify the right person or level within an organization to deliver this to? Like, who do I deliver the message to when I'm doing?
Yeah, this is really important because basically you're going to redirect budget. Mm-hmm. So if your normal business relationships are with people that already are administering a budget, mm-hmm. those people cannot redirect budget. So you can't sell it to those people. You have to go one level up to those folks, which is where you can have sensitivity about you just went over my head kind of problem.
Right.
The second thing then is once you get that interest, though, you got to go back down, mm-hmm. and now we involve the process owners in this new decision. But you can't start there. You got to start one level above them and then bring them back in.
Got it. Okay. Interesting. All right. Let me weave in some answers, by the way, from our earlier question, and then we'll keep moving through. So we had asked the question a little bit earlier, how has your sales team adjusted your sales strategy? So we just asked for people to comment, and thank you for the people that did. Some of the responses we got in that second question, how they adjusted their sales strategy, independent of hearing any of this. People started doing more relationship-based selling. We're rethinking who our customers are was another set of answers. And then it seemed a group of them were also less dials, more conversations, less dials, less measurements, I guess KPI kind of things, more conversations through LinkedIn were some of the answers for how they're adjusting. So just to keep that and weave that in.
I want to make a point about that because I think that they're doing something important.
Yeah.
Normally in sales, it's a very performance-driven culture, right? And basically we got to hit our numbers and go forward.
Right.
In a downturn, you know that whatever numbers you set for yourself are probably not right. And yes, you still need to perform at some level. So you're not throwing away your performance metrics. Mm-hmm. But in many situations, you realize, okay, in the next window of time, I'm not going to close a sale, but this is a highly valuable customer or a highly valuable prospect. Mm-hmm. And so I want to, in the short term, instead of focusing exclusively on performance, mm-hmm. I want to think about the relationship between performance and power, and particularly soft power, which is kind of like relationship capital. So if I can't sell something, can I build relationship capital? And we talk about an idea called strategic acts of generosity, where you say, if there's something I give away, my time or whatever, that will allow me to build relationship points mm-hmm. with this customer and have begin to earn the right to become a trusted advisor. And that takes time, but that's I think important.
It's interesting. It's great because we see that too. And I talk to our kids about it. I talk to people I work with all the time. It's when the shit hits the fan that you can earn your stripes, right? Paying it forward. What can I do for you? And actually delivering against that. It's when everything is going against everyone, then you can stand up and say, how can I help? And actually deliver like what you're talking about. And very few people do that, right? Everybody's happy when everything's going well. It's when things aren't going well, and you can really help.
And what's interesting about it is, anybody has you have some amount of capital for strategic acts of generosity, no matter who you are or what your job is. Mm-hmm. What we tend to realize after the fact is, damn, I could have done a lot more, but I was so worried about it. Because what happens is people worry so much about missing their performance metrics, they don't think about improving their power metrics.
Right. Interesting. Okay, so let's go a little further. So we've talked about things. How do you identify critical issues, come up with provocations? How do you get that sales and marketing departments? How do you adapt them to formulate the provocations? I'm just even thinking structurally. Let's say I've got my sales team and my marketing team, and a lot of people confuse, I'm VP sales and marketing. That means you're head of sales. But how do you structure?
It's important. It is important. Yeah. Well, so first of all, think about in a provocation-based selling or in any market segmentation-based strategy, you actually have a set of named accounts. If I'm thinking B2B primarily, named accounts in the market segment, mm-hmm. and you have a set of target executives. Now, the second thing though is, most salespeople are trained. Well, I want to go in, I want to give a presentation, I want to give a demo.
Right.
But no, you don't, and no, you don't. So we often say, don't even bring a computer to the first meeting, and for God's sake, don't give a demo.
Right. Because
the point is, you want to establish a relationship around the problem, not around the solution.
Oh, that's great. I like that.
Yeah. And that's, I have to say, some salespeople get that immediately and are talented at it, and mm-hmm. some people wouldn't get it in 20 years, no matter how much you pounded on them. Mm. And the second group is actually quite good at selling when the wind is in their sails. So it's not like they're incompetent salespeople. They're incredibly competent salespeople, but they can't do provocation-based selling.
Interesting. So what do you do? I mean, so then how do you structure things? And some people.
I would create my provocation-based selling team. If I can't afford 2 teams, we have the layoff. But what you don't want to do is have a classic closing salesperson try to run this provocation-based effort. That doesn't work.
I see. Okay, cool. Let's keep going. If you have a little bit more time, a little bit further. So how and when do you deliver the provocation? Is it? I'm thinking about got SD. If you talk like startups that are mid-stage and they're I've got SDRs, I've got AEs, I got who delivers what? When do I deliver the message? Is it my first call? Is it my email message? When do I deliver the message?
So I think you hint that you're building toward the first meeting with the target executive where you bring your most valuable player to that meeting, whether that's your most senior executive or your expert in this process, whatever it is. And at that meeting, that is the meeting. That's where you lodge the provocation, meaning, and basically what you're doing is you're proposing it as a hypothesis, and then you're probing your executive person to say, are you buying into this hypothesis? Do you see this in your own company? If you don't, what do you see? Are we missing something? And what will happen is here are typical outcomes. One is, holy crap, of course we're seeing this thing, and I don't believe you can do anything about it, but yes, I have the problem. And then you can move to, okay, well, let me show you what it looks like through our lens. You're still not selling anything. You're just trying to create a perspective on, would you allocate resources to further investigate this possibility? That's what you're doing during that. But that's the key meeting. Once you get them to allocate those resources in good faith, and then you can bring your team from then on. Now you're you're co-innovating to build a solution to their problem, and that's a very, very powerful path to be on.
Okay, great. No demo, right? In that first
but because the problem is that's like going to a doctor and saying, I have this problem. He says, well, let me show you a video of the operations I give. It's like, I don't think I want to see your video. No, I want.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so that's it over. A couple other questions that's just running through my mind. Do you think this works equally well for hunters versus farmers? Right? You have salespeople that are, what I mean, right? So
yeah. I think it's a version of a hunter play. It's interesting. It actually doesn't work with classic hunters or classic farmers. Classic hunters are closing salespeople, and classic farmers are people that maintain the existing relationship. This is a hunter that's a different kind of hunter.
Right. Okay, we got it. I just wanted to make sure some people tuning in might know, the hunter is the person that, gets the account. The farmer is usually the land and expand portion. And
yeah. This is a third party. It's interesting. It's like they're coming into a relationship with an intervention. Right. Maybe they're a social worker, a community organizer. I don't know. There's something.
Okay, cool. Last of our audience questions to weave in. Again, if you're just joining us, Geoffrey Moore is out in Silicon Valley today near Menlo Park, who is joining us, Steve Barsh from Dreamit. I'm in Philly today. Thanks for joining us. We're still going through. If you're more interested in reading the actual article, if you Google, you go to dreamit.com/live to see this episode on there, and there's a link from there, or just Google like Harvard Business Review, provocation-based selling. You'll find the article. It's a gem. It's just terrific. Read it and digest it. And Geoffrey's taking it through a step-by-step and giving us that modern version of it for today. For these challenging times. Let me ask the third audience question. If people can put their answers in the comments, then we'll weave them back into the discussion in a couple minutes. And again, if you have general questions, any question for Jeff, just put them in the comments. We're compiling them in the background, and we'll ask questions as we go through. And Jeff, by the way, we have a lot of questions. I just looked at the spreadsheet. There's quite a few. So the next question I want to ask the audience is, what new tools are you using? I'm almost thinking tech tools. What new tools are you using, and are they helping? So in the last couple of weeks, we've all been challenged. We're all using, the not Skype or Zoom or whatever. What tools you've been using, are they helping? So just put that in the comments, whether you're on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, live. That'd be great. So as we get those questions, those answers coming in, next question for you. How do you know, Jeff, along the way you're doing provocative selling, what are some points along the way that this is working? Like, are there intermediate points like, even in an individual customer, I'm not thinking the overall what the provocations are, but okay, I'm getting some signal this is working or not working. How do I know to course correct?
Well, so the first signal and the most important signal is, did the executive sponsor agree to sponsor the second kind of, if you will, this investigatory move? Mm-hmm. Then as you're doing that, and this is what's really important, you need to be able to stay close to the problem as it's being experienced in the customer's site, as opposed to trying to quickly migrate to something that you already have on the shelf. Right. So the way you can defeat a provocation-based selling success, you can snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, if you will, right, is halfway through say, well, you know, but here's my standard offer and please buy it. Okay. Right. So so the success signals are, we're getting closer and closer to the problem. We see that what we call trapped value. So the trapped value is what you're going to release. This is what your new approach is going to release. Mm-hmm. And so where's the trapped value? How precision, this is like precision bombing. I want to put our offer right on top of that target. So getting smarter and smarter about that. And also building relationship capital with the process owning team. Mm-hmm. So the process owning team often initially is threatened by you, because they're running the old process way, the old way. But if you can bring them onto the boat, no. This is your process, not mine. It's yours. But here's the new lens, and can you work with this lens, and can we make it work? Then get kind of their fingerprints on the solution. What starts happening is the proposal starts being more and more their proposal rather than your proposal. Wow. And that's like, okay, now we're in good shape.
Okay, so along that, as we're getting towards the end here, and still I know a lot of juicy tidbits you could share. You've been thinking about this and working on these types of techniques, this one for at least 10 years, if not more. I'm just thinking when I read the article, what are two to three of the biggest tricks to getting this right? Like if you sit there and think, God, there's just do these two things correctly. And maybe we've already talked about it. It's like, get the right provocation, talk to the executive. Is there more to that if you had to boil it down?
Yeah, I think the one thing I would say is spend 80% of your time on digging deeper into the customer's problem and getting closer and closer to it, and 20% of your time on your solution and yourself and your company, what you have to offer. Most people invert that. Most people want to talk about, here's what we have to offer, here's what I could buy, whatever. That's not the key to success here.
Got it. And then on the mistake side, and maybe it's the flip side of what you just said.
It's like if you at some point muscle memory of reverting to the sales cycle, the product-centric, close-oriented sales cycle. If you're doing it late in the project, you'll probably get some kind of a sale, but it won't be what you really could have gotten. And if you do it early, you'll just get kicked out. You won't get kicked out. It's worse than that. You'll get kind of a slow roll, so you'll spend more time in the account, but you will never close anything.
Any one or two other big mistakes you see when people have tried to implement this, like, oh God, I hope they didn't do that because the one or two screw ups?
Is discounting. So this is weird, but if you've got a good provocation, you should not be discounting the price, because it's a little bit like saying, you need heart surgery, and I have this coupon for $9.99. You can get it on Saturdays.
Right.
It's not the right message.
Got it. That was great. Okay. Cool. Let me summarize the answers to question 3 if they came in. We're still waiting on those. What new tools are they using? Here they come. What new tools are they using? And then I'm gonna ask you to weave that in, and then we'll open it up for questions. So in answer 3, a few of the tools people are using that they've been leveraging right now to try to help break through, using more Crunchbase and Angel List. I guess that's more for talking to investors. Some people said Seamless.ai, HubSpot, Zoom, Slack, different tools that they're using at these times to communicate. So Jeff, what would you, and then we're going to open it up for audience questions, any tech tools or software that you recommend at this time? It's hard to get physical. I can't get in front of the executive. I'm not playing golf, right? Yeah. So, Zoom, Salesforce, HubSpot. I think Zoom is the game changer, or a Zoom-like facility. But I think Zoom has reset the bar pretty dramatically, and it's pretty exciting to see. Anyway, but then I think the interesting thing is, it's the actual soft skill. It's not so much the tools, although Slack and all these things, but we don't know how to manage digitally. I mean, like, how do you give a performance management conversation
digitally? How do you interview somebody digitally? How do you build a program coalition digitally? And so I think the soft skills is where it's going to be really interesting going forward. But right now, I think we're making them up as we go along. And by the way, I think some people are doing a great job. So I hope that they're capturing some of the learnings, because we're going to want to package these up and resell them when this thing is, when the storm passes. There's a hell of an opportunity here to make digital transformation real for the rest of the world.
Okay, cool. We're going to get to audience questions in a second. Are you good for about another 10 minutes or so?
Yep. Yeah, let's do it.
Questions, I see them in front of them. Just real quick reminder again, Jeff, thanks. So every day we're working with health tech, secure tech, urban companies. We love to bring best practices to them. We love to work with people like Jeff, which are terrific. And thank you, because it's these challenging times, things like provocative selling are so important. Okay, so let me go to some audience questions. I'm going to read them off, Jeff. Dustin will probably put them up on the screen. Just thanking the Dreamit team. Huge effort with everyone remote. Jeff remote. Dustin's producing. Vicky is grabbing comments. Charles is coordinating. So we appreciate everybody's time. Okay, some audience questions. First question we have is, can I do this effectively, provocative-based selling, I guess, if not face-to-face, like we are now?
Yeah. I mean, so it's harder. Again, the referral, if you get a referral, it's a Zoom meeting. I think you probably have to do more with text in advance. So you send it in advance and say, look, this is what we're going to talk about going forward. And yeah, it really would. I mean, this is one, if you ever could do one in person, you would normally want to do it in person.
Sure.
So we've never, this is not proven over Zoom. This has been proven numerous times in person, but this is going to be our first digital era.
Well, yeah, you don't have a choice, right? So, all right.
Yeah, exactly. Or yeah, exactly. What do you want to play solitaire? Go ahead, play solitaire.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Next question. How do I make sure I don't piss people off? I guess like what you had said, like sometimes you have to go over people's head. I'm thinking the MASH episode from 20 years ago, right? You're going to give me athlete scalp, right? So how do you do this and not piss people off?
Well, I think there's two things. So first of all, and there are two different people you could be pissing off, the economic buyer or the process owner. So let's start with the economic buyer. Look, you're going to provoke, which means you're going to, implicit in your message is you're doing something wrong today. And by the way, you are endorsing your company doing something wrong today. So that's a potentially piss off message. Now you want to deliver that message with, look, we're looking at it through a different lens. You should look through the lens too and see if you come to the same conclusion. It's your business, not my business. You know your business a hell of a lot better than I know your business, but we have this interesting point of view to look at. And if you do it with enough humility and empathy, but at the same time, hold their feet to the fire on this problem, that's an art. And sometimes they could say, get out of my office. Okay. All right. Well, nice try. The other person that you worry about is the process owner, particularly if you've had an established relationship with that process owner, where you want to say, look, I don't want to disenfranchise you. And we have this opportunity to do this, but you can't let them gatekeep your way to the executive. So one of the ways you can get around that is, well, I would never have gone over your head, but my CEO sent an email to your CEO, and then they called me in, and I had to go do it. I mean, you lie, basically. Right. But
yeah, I know. Geoffrey Moore told me. What can I do?
Yeah, exactly. I'm doing my best, and then whatever.
Exactly. Okay. Next question. We'll keep burning through these. When in the sales life cycle do you use this? Is it your initial outreach? Is it? And you were saying it might be mostly for existing customers, but again. What's
interesting about this? Yeah, this is a really interesting one. It's actually a good graphic in the article where the traditional sales cycle sort of builds over a slow build and it kind of crescendos at the close. The provocation-based sales cycle actually peaks at the beginning, where basically what you try to do is create that sense of urgency and excitement around the possibility that there's another way. Like if I told you there's a drug or a vaccine for COVID-19, you'd be pretty damn interested, right? Yeah. And so therefore it actually shortens the sales cycle. You don't want to shorten the sales cycle by cutting short the diagnosis prescription part of the proposal development. You want to make sure that gets really, really deep into the problem so that you can create a radiating reference out of this thing at the end and going forward. But it's a different sales cycle rhythm. But anyway, you shoot your guns early and then kind of take it downhill from that.
I see the next question. It feeds right into that. You kind of answered this, but it feeds off of what you just said. Next question is, and appreciate, by the way, I have about 5 more questions. Appreciate all the audience questions. Who in the sales organization should be using this? The VP, the SDRs, the AEs? I think you kind of answered that. Like you said, this is a big guns approach.
Yeah. So look, the SDRs and the AEs and the folks can lay the groundwork. It's a little bit like, when they sign a big treaty between 2 heads of state, there's all those people that, do all the meetings ahead of time, and they go back and forth and iron out the details. But so the SDR can do, well, first of all, the marketing group can package the provocation as a script. You can then, but the BDR is not trying to get the executive. The BDR would reach out to somebody who's a process owner saying, we're having conversations with people around this. Is this a conversation you think would be interesting in your company, whatever? So you can do that. That's one possibility. The AE can also do that. But the actual meeting, the deal. So if I have to do it digitally, and I might be the AE, and I finally got this executive, I want a third person on that video conference who's my expert. Got it. I'm just going to be the dumb salesperson. Look, this is this new idea. It's pretty exciting. I'm going to let our experts talk to you about it. And then if we get excitement, then the next step is that he or she should bring their expert to talk to our expert, and hopefully they'll attach like fax modems used to attach to each other.
I'm thinking of the Hayes modem and the link and sync.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Next question coming up. How does you kind of talked about this a little bit. How does getting creative with pricing and deal points fit in? You had said like discounting, but so how does
but there is you want to get creative with the pricing, but it's around services. So what you want to do is you want to heavily load this thing with services. Okay. And so as a result, normally in a normal market, you discount services to keep your product margins up. Right. Actually, in this situation, you reverse it. Okay. You don't want to discount services, but you actually give your product away because you want to get a radiating reference and you want to have a good price point. And the person wants to spend money. Right. But they want to spend money to get the very, very best. It's like, I want to spend money to get the executive chef. Right. And so that's the idea behind it.
Just to push back a little bit on that, the only challenge with that from what you said is, so at the end of the day, we're a venture capital firm, right? So when we see a services-based company versus a high-profit SaaS company, like in the VC firms that you've been a part of, you love that great SaaS revenue. You don't want to see the services revenue. Are you finding investors are like, revenue, just get revenue?
If they are, they're making a mistake in a downturn because you're not going to. So that everybody gets that the SaaS model is the model that we want to mature into. Sure. But when you're trying to create new capital with someone, the SaaS module is a land and expand. Right, sure. It's a gradual extension. This is a crisis. We don't want to land and expand. We want to intervene. And intervention is a services-led effort. Got it.
Okay, let's go to the next question from Michael Bertoni. Michael, thanks for asking it. What, in your opinion, are the top 3 things salespeople need to be doing right now? Michael.
Well, I think basically I would start, and if I were a sales leader, I would say, look, you still have to, do your best to make whatever number you're going to make. I mean, that's job one, and you're doing triage, and it's not going to be easy, but that's got to be job one. But you're going to have extra time, A, because you're working from home, and B, because you're not going to get as much pipe traffic as you want. Right. So with that discretionary time, I would want to say, I wouldn't want you to track what I'm going to call your non-billable hours. I used to be a consultant. So in a consultancy, they worry about your billable hours. Right. I want to track your non-billable hours. But here's the deal. To qualify as a non-billable hour, you have to be in conversation with a customer. And by the way, I'm going to award points. I don't know what they're going to be worth. It's like mileage plus miles. But I'm going to award points for your non-billable hours. And I'm going to find some reward to give you at some point. It's based on because what you're doing is you're building soft power and relationship capital that we can use downstream. And that's what I would be doing with my discretionary time.
Okay, cool. And then it's 20,000 points to travel cross country. Never mind, different thing. Okay, no one's traveling.
The truth is, there's something we can give. I'm sure there's something.
Something. Okay, next question from Edgar David Arana. If I pronounce it. Thank you, Edgar, for your question. Is it perceived? Oh, this is interesting. Is it perceived as a negative to lead with marketing material that states COVID-19 is fostering X in your industry. Is that the provocation?
Yeah, I think that is, you have to be careful. It's like the universal provocation.
Yeah.
And people have learned to say, well, I will filter out the universal provocation.
Right.
What I need for you to say is, COVID-19 has forced us all to work from home. Banks who are trying to work from home have these issues. Here, blah, blah. In other words, you gotta step it down to eventually get to a use case that can penetrate that particular situation, in a precise way.
By the way, that banking example was really good. I don't think this is the first time you've done this, right? That's good. Okay. Next question from Charlie James. Thanks, Charlie, for asking. Do you have assessments or characteristics to look for when hiring salespeople who can do provocative-based sales? Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, yes. I think what you're looking for. It's interesting because these people may not be great salespeople in the more traditional, qualify and close model.
Mm-hmm.
They have intellectual curiosity. Mm-hmm. They are good at doing probing dialogue, diagnostic prescriptive dialogues.
Right.
And they can kind of think. They can put themselves in the customer's seat and creatively imagine both problems and solutions. Right. And they're able to build a relationship of trust over time by just essentially being trustworthy in the way they communicate, right. And the expectations they set, and then the expectations that they meet.
Right. Okay, cool. Makes sense. Next question, 3 more. AJ Jotwani. AJ, thanks for your question. He asked, can you provide some real life examples for provocative selling? Are there 1 or 2 you could think of off the top of your head?
Well, sure. Yeah, there are some. To be fair, there's some way back in the day in the article, but yeah. I mean, so for example, right now, if you're say, any of these digital transformation folks, the healthcare system right now is happening right now. So people are saying, look, you need to have some way to handle your caseload. So we're invested in a company called HealthTap. So HealthTap just said, we've set up a free service where you can have video-based COVID-19 diagnostics for free. Mm-hmm. And so now that's obviously an attempt to create a relationship of trust with the healthcare provider, which would allow, or frankly, the enterprise who might want to deploy the same thing. Mm-hmm. So that'd be an example of saying, look, you can't handle this with your existing system. Mm-hmm. You know damn well you can't. You can't even get masks for your distance system, for God's sake. Right. So here's a different lens to look at that problem through.
Right. It's interesting you bring that up, by the way. So Dreamit, one of the verticals we focus on is health tech, and we've been doing it for 6 or 7 years and have 130 companies that have gone through Dreamit and part of our portfolio. We probably have a dozen today that have COVID-19 solutions in use right now, and it's really interesting. So we're talking to we have about 30 healthcare partners and providers around the United States that we're actively sending them information. These are frontline companies that are in the fight already. How can they help? And you don't need much provoking. The only provoking you need there is they are so freaking busy and so distracted for all the right reasons.
Totally.
You've got to, at least right now in these couple of weeks, you really need to hit it with, it's all they're focused on.
Right? And I think the key, this is an important point about provocation-based selling.
Yeah.
In order to cut through that noise, so not just noise, it's just the contention for attention.
Sure.
Is you got to really focus on, and this is exactly what we can do now. So is that given the 25 things that COVID-19 has created to change your priorities, where does this one fit? Because if it's not one of the top 3, probably you and I would be better talking to other people right now.
Right. Just interesting, just because you also mentioned healthcare. Even when we're doing that, we're looking at the Dreamit companies that electronic medical record system integration, don't need it. Implementation time has to be measured in hours, not weeks. We need a 1 month integration with Epic. Gone. It's like for what people are going to do right now. It's got to be an amazing solution, and you can turn it on like that, or have companies that have that ability. Anyway, so next question from Nikhil Gupta. Nikhil asks, how do sales folks quickly sense urgency with customers when time is short? Is the way provocation independently?
Yeah, I think what you do, your provocation either registers as urgent or doesn't, and you want to actually let the customer or prospect decide describe to you their level of urgency. You don't want to inject urgency into them, which is going to go away when you leave.
Right.
Because you need that urgency to stay there, to be persistent in order to drive through the sales cycle. So you're actually kind of qualifying your customer on this business of urgency. You need to create the vision of urgency. You need to reframe their vision so that they see what you think that they should see. But if they then do not respond to that as a sense of urgency, that actually disqualifies the customer from this sales cycle. Got
it. Okay, last question we have. It's a little long, but I'll read it to you. Hopefully it comes up on your screen as well. And again, thank you, and there's a whole bunch of people working behind the scenes to get this to work. Last question states, when you state that digital transformation is the keystone, what are the primary ways you suggest for provocative sales professionals for developing the necessary soft skills?
Yeah, I mean, in the short term, you just have to hire for them. You have to just sort of select for them. We're not going to be able to develop the skills in time to do that. Right. What I do think is important, and because I spend a bunch of time in Salesforce, they have this thing called Trailhead, right. And they're very interested in reskilling the workforce, and everybody's talking about reskilling the workforce, and they're thinking about it. Most people think about it like, did they learn the technical tool? Can they run this or that? What I'm realizing is, in this new digital world, if this is a forecast of what the world's going to look like in a digitally transformed landscape, we don't know how to manage virtually digitally. We've never done it before. Right. We know how to use it as a kind of a 5% of management. Right. But how do you do when it's 95% of management? Right. And all of our processes, whether it's hiring, firing, counseling, coaching, selling, servicing, whatever it is, we've always done it in person. Right. So I think there's going to be an entire curriculum there to learn. For right now, you need people who are, we say, unconsciously competent, right? We'll eventually try to get conscious competence, but right now we need the people that are unconsciously competent.
In that digital transformation, by the way, I saw an article yesterday, last night, this morning. It all blurs together at the moment. But it was talking about Zoom, and it was talking about HR issues. And it said that this one startup had to lay off several hundred people. So they opened up a Zoom room, invited everybody in, and laid off several hundred people all at once over Zoom. It was like, oh my God. I mean, that's such a hard thing to do anyway. Horrible.
Right, exactly. So then the question would be, and by the way, we'll make 100 mistakes in the next 100 days for sure, but hopefully we'll capture the mistakes and we'll figure out, well, what is the protocol and how would you do that?
Right. So by the way, that last question was from Andrew Klippenoff. Okay, on that cheery note, no. That was great. Appreciate it again. Geoffrey, this is all about provocative selling. If you haven't read the article, Google or go to dreamit.com/live or Google HBR provocative selling, or you can reach out to Geoffrey. It's really, really helpful. It's a great technique. I've used it myself. It's really powerful and helpful. Really appreciate your time today. Just a couple last things, just as we wrap up here. There's provocative selling. A couple last things to do. If you like what we're doing here at Dreamit, please check out the Dreamit Dose on YouTube for lots of pragmatic techniques. They run 5 to 7 minutes. They're all the things that we see startups make mistakes with all the time. So if you get a chance, check that out. Also, check out our upcoming and past Dreamit Live episodes on dreamit.com/live. Next week, Jason Calacanis is going to be on, not too far from you, Geoffrey, and not too far at all. Talking about a super angel's views on raising in challenging times. We're going to keep the series of Dreamit Live going on, this whole theme of challenging times. So we want to get the right information out to startups around the world to help them. Geoffrey, we really appreciate your time. Thanks for making the time for us today. And stay safe, stay well, wash your hands, and we look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Steve, it's been a pleasure. I really appreciate it. Good to interact with the people on the call. Thanks.
Thanks so much. Take care. Cheers. Bye-bye.